Okay, so I'm sure you guys have clients that you've had for quite some time. What are the really sharp ones doing with this? How are they using this?
Right,
they're doing
it, Josh,
right, I know, but sure, they got to be doing it more than just doing it. Like they have, I would imagine. My mind goes to, I can implement this into a land purchase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they're viewing their next real estate acquisition with this heavily in mind.
Yeah.
While, how do I offset taxes? I mean, man, if I can save, let's say $1,700 an acre.
Right.
To me, that's $1,700 an acre in extra buying power.
Right.
If my cap was $4,000 an acre for a piece of something, $5,700.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that gap is something that I necessarily may not have to pay for.
Right.
Now,
right.
I know that's perfect world. That's perfect scenario.
I think you're really stretching it there, Josh.
I know,
because I think as a businessman, there it's just like, no, utilize this as a tool based on what your situation needs.
Right.
So do you have a bunch of grain in the bin that you need to sell?
Yeah.
And you need to be able to use so you're not getting taxed, right? Or is it when you're making that land purchase, I know I'll raise my hand one more time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say I'm going to take that whole potential deduction and
just
say now that's my cap.
Right. Well,
yeah,
gathering data, because it's like, okay, if I did this on this farm and the farm next to it comes up for sale, I have a pretty good idea of, hey, this is probably the value on that land, rough ballpark. How can I use this into my real estate purchase, value add, things of that nature.
Right.
That's where my brain immediately went, but also offsetting, deferring payment of a lot of grain. And then, that's another great one, especially since it doesn't sound like it takes a terrible length of time. This isn't a year's process.
Right.
It's
fairly
like, okay, it looks like it's August. Because I look at my wrist like I have a watch on, and that tells me the time, and I don't. But, it's like, okay, I'm going to look into this. I could still use this for my tax planning for this current year moving forward.
Right.
That's a very powerful tool. What if because I'm sitting here thinking, I have a friend whose dad retired, and his last harvest is all in bins right now, and he doesn't have any deductible expenses coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or you got to sell it at some time.
Yeah.
He's going to get murdered in taxes off this. Boom.
Yeah.
Well, and me kind of rewinding back, have we talked much about like family transitional planning there? Like where would this fit in that picture? Maybe where does it not fit, just to help clear the waters there?
Well, you got to get your family estate planning right? Or you're going to break up the family and the farm. So once you get that plan put together, though, Dad can use this deduction when he buys ground, and then the availability of the tax deduction refreshes whenever the tax basis gets refreshed, right? So normally I would sell you a farm, right, and you would get a new tax basis on that same parcel.
Yep.
And you can go out and do a soil nutrient load report on your farm, because now it's yours, where I might have done it 5 years ago when I bought it. Okay.
Interesting.
And one of the ways that we transition ownership of ag real estate in from generation to generation is in our estate planning. And if that beneficiary is getting a stepped up tax basis, that's a new tax basis, right?
Okay. Yep.
So they can go out and do this on the same ground at a time when they're filing estate returns and adding up all the dollars they've got to turn over to state and federal government as a result of that. And maybe you don't have to sell part of the farm. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Because this could create enough of an offset that maybe you don't have to sell, or somebody doesn't have to put a second mortgage on their house to inherit a family farm.
Any more misconceptions that you can think of? Maybe it's a better question for you.
I would say, what are some of the main questions you get, the revolving ones that we haven't covered yet? Are there any?
You guys have done a really good job asking questions, and the reality is, a lot of our work is just educating people. You know what I mean? Once they understand it and they understand how it works, we have very, very few people that depart from the process because the value's there, right? And they did pay for the ground. They bought it. And if they bought it recently, they paid more than they probably thought they should have, right? Because we've all tried to do a cash flow on $10,000 or $15,000 an acre farm ground. And that's really hard to do. It's hard, here in Nebraska, a lot of this pasture ground trades for, $2,200, $2,400, $2,500. Cow can't carry that. You know what I mean? You gotta blend in some equity from someplace to get that to work. So this is just one of those tools that makes it a little less expensive to own that ag real estate. The questions that we get, I can't even count the times when people have said this is too good to be true. But it really is, in my opinion, it's the prices being paid for ag real estate that are too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't really cash flow those numbers. It's all about owning the real estate.
People don't gawk at money spent. They gawk most with skepticism at money saved. I mean, really, it's like go drop $80,000 on a new pickup. Okay, that's the price of a pickup. Hey, here's a rebate. I don't know if that's real.
The pickup's still running.
There's no way that's right.
Yeah, and so it's mostly education, but understanding what qualifies. What land can we do this on? Production ground. You got enough tax basis. You're the deeded owner in the property, which sometimes that gets a little confused, right? I mean, we had one of the few cases out there that the IRS has weighed in on was because they claimed the deduction in the wrong place, right? It wasn't the deeded owner. So we want to make sure, we ask about these things to make sure that the name on the front of our report matches the tax return it's going to land on.
Yeah.
So there's just no questions, right? Everything flows smoothly for everybody.
So this is not for an operation. This is for the specific landowner.
This is for the landowner.
Josh Pretzer is a landowner.
Right.
But Pretzer Farms is not here doing this deduction, this process. This is Josh Pretzer, the landowner.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. However you've got it deeded. And if it's the LLC that owns the ground, that's where the deduction goes.
I see.
It's whose name is on the deed, who's got the tax basis. That's where it goes.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've got say there's a farm, say there's 75 acres of tillable, 96 acres of deeded ground. Mm-hmm. It's considered waste. Bank, trees, waterway, etc. Is like the reported to crop insurance and FSA the acres that qualifies? You said it needs to be an agricultural use, so I assume just the tillable there.
Well, are you grazing that other ground off?
Every once in a while a cow gets out.
Okay. Well, here's the way I would respond to that is if it does or could be an ag production. So maybe you just graze that over the winter time.
It was bought.
You paid for it. Right.
Yeah.
So, the only things that we really can't, include are like ponds, rock beds, stuff that is obviously not, production ground. But if it can be grazed, if it's a tree line or it's a patch that's hard to get to, so maybe you just harvest some prairie hay off of it once a year, or you graze it along with your cropland in the wintertime when you're mowing off your stalks or your stubble.
Winter graze.
Yeah, winter graze the stuff. So, if you're honestly in production, I would recommend that you include it, because your soil nutrients on that same parcel aren't going to vary that much from the center pivot to the corners. You know what I mean? And you're going to pick up a better deduction value, including those acres, than if you carve them out.
What about, this is one question, what about land you have enrolled in CRP?
CRP, the agreements that we've inspected for CRP, by definition, really aren't in production. It is a set-aside program.
Yeah,
sure. You're being paid to not produce on that ground.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we've even run across a couple of some grassland easements and things where the production decision doesn't even reside with the owner anymore. It's they have to go get permission, and when we've kind of said, again, taken the conservative route and said, probably not a good idea there, because if there's any question, if anybody can pick it apart, probably should stay away from it.
Sure. Okay. So if you've got CRP and you're considering not renewing the contract, put it back into production.
If it's in production, then you're back online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other things. Guys, if you've liked the information that you've seen so far, go ahead and check out the full-length podcast on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe there. It's also on all the major podcast platforms. We're constantly dropping info and more content on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Check it out for a lot more content.